Previously on the history of Yu-Gi-Oh, we took a look at the end of 2016 with Invasion format. ABC, Metal Foes, and Paleofrogs were the big three in a landscape not devoid of lower tier decks. With the dawn of the new year, Metal Foes would start inching their way up through the ranks as they would win YCS Sydney in mid-January. 2017 would not be more of the same as a wave of new releases and meta threats await every corner. How will Arc Vi cement itself in the era's final year? Without spoiling anything, these last formats will be quite the doozy. So grab yourself a drink, hit like and subscribe, and join my Patreon, and let's get started. New releases would start almost immediately following YCS Sydney with the Structure deck. Pendulum Domination. This DD focus deck was actually slated to be released in 2016. However, it was pushed back due to the rise of the True Dragon structure deck and its inherent blue-eye support. Remember, Konami was heavily pushing the dragons during World Season. In the OCG's 2016 year, the DD archetype was meta-defining. Sadly, by this point, the weight stifled the deck's top-tier viability, though some would try it as a rogue option moving forward. They went from different dimension to debatably decent. This leads us to the first core set of the year, Raging Tempest, on February 10th. Rate is a big set for a number of reasons, such as great single releases, including but not limited to the Wind Witch cards as a great synchro engine, Sea Monster of Theseus that Konami themselves hyped up, and Lost Wind, which was a great effect negation trap. If we're looking at the single largest card from Rate, that has to be none other than That Grass Looks Greener. Large in terms of its impact, not the physical card size. This spell is a deck-defining card, as if you have more cards in your deck than your opponent, you mill the difference. Thus, 60 card decks that could make use of this would start seeing play to ensure a hefty mill. One such deck was the Rogue Grass Skull Servant deck, which would inevitably buff up King of the Skull Servants. And that was just the floor to Grass's capabilities, as we'll soon discover. Really, the hype release was the new archetype, Zoodiac, a rank 4 Beast Warrior deck. These animals of the Chinese Zoodiac would redefine the abilities of Xyz monsters, as Zoodiacs can be overlaid on fellow Zoodiacs for additional effects and inherent stats. For example, the main deck cards like Rapier can foolish a Zoodiac, and can be detached to special a Rapier from hand or deck. Thoroughblade can pitch a card to draw a card, and gives an Xyz piercing. On the extra deck front, Broadbull can detach to search a Beast Warrior, and Trident can detach to pop a card. On top of that, the archetype has a great continuous spell in Zoodiac Barrage that can get a Zoodiac from the deck, and Barrage becomes a material upon its destruction. Whoa. The short summary is that the deck had insane starters, searchers, recursion, and combo lines right out of the gate. Their power would be proven 10 days later at YCS Seattle as Zoodiac and its variants ran rampant, because any deck that could run a Zoo engine or core would. This led to a Kaiju Zoodiac deck taking the gold thanks to the Kaiju engine allowing zoos to out opposing boards. Most of the top cut were some variation on zoos like Infernoid Zoo or Volcanic Zoo, making many wish a ban list would arise sooner rather than later. While it wouldn't happen right away, the game would continue to receive new releases. Fusion Enforcers would bring us the Invoked archetype. Alistair the Invoker, Invocation, and Magical Meltdown would be the big cards for a powerful fusion engine, with Makaba and Raijin being the best on release. As to why Invocation is not spelled with a K like all the other cards, I have no idea, and it absolutely bothers me. Though select other languages do spell it with a K, oddly enough. The spelling was not as bothersome to Zoo Duelists at March 4th's YCS Atlanta. Bothersome in the sense that they would lose out to a recent-ish deck, Paleofrog. Even more Zoo variants would show up like Invoked and Wind Witch, but effects were meaningless to a deck that could negate them. Lost Wind was key here, as it was a permanent negate, unlike Breakthrough Skill. Atlanta gave hope in an otherwise Zoodiac-looking future. Infernoid Zoo would win YCS Guatemala, but Paleofrog would return the favor at YCS Prague. This is a different build as it focuses on That Grass Looks Greener. Prague was a popular event since two of the best players in the world at the time were in the finals, Joshua Schmidt and Billy Brake. Grass had been seeing play at YCS's, so the fact that both Brake and Schmidt played a 60-card Grass builds in the finals certainly saw ripples throughout the rest of the TCG landscape. After Prague, changes were made, just not in the way some were expecting. Duelist Saga would come out and feature three things. One being the new Ultra Rares with a horizontal foil. These are a new style of Ultras in similar fashion to Parallel Rares. It makes sense for Konami to try a slightly different foil style, considering it costs less to do than, say, with Ghost or Ultimate Rares, reasons why those were discontinued at various points. I'm personally not a fan of these, yet it does have its supporters. The other new addition would be new cards such as Gozuki, Vision Hero Vion, Featherstorm, and Malevolent Sin. More curious are the new round of functional erratas. Konami has been on a run with these as of late, and this was a big one. New erratas include Brionac, Yugioh Guardian, Rescue Cat, Treeborn Frog, Brain Control, Future Fusion, Necro Valley, and Imperial Order. Aside from Necro Valley, all the cards received some form of downgrade, like Yugioh needing an Earth Tuner, Rescue Cat negating the effects of monsters summoned alongside a hard once per turn effect, and Brain Control now only being able to target a normal summonable monster. Some saw these as unnecessary, while Konami claimed it was for design coherence. Either way, this method would allow the cards to slowly be weaned off the ban list, theoretically speaking. And speaking of, the March 27 list would strike down on the last day of the month. This list was interesting for it was mostly for functional erratas with minor meta adjustments. A majority of the key hits were annoying cards like Zoodiac Ratpier, Interrupted Kaiju Slumber, Kirin, and Vanity's Emptiness. While people were surprised other cards didn't get hit, like anything related to Paleofrog, Norden, and Speedroid Terrortop, the latter two zoos loved, the general consensus was that this was a positive list. Sadly, this wouldn't do much of anything when looking at YCS Denver, where, despite post-list variety incentive, Zoodiac was still insanely strong. And speaking of strength, April 14th will give us two new structure decks for Dinosaurs and Ancient Gears. I'm not sure what a Dino Smasher is, it sounds like a Duel Masters card, but that's okay when the deck reinvented what it means to play dinosaurs. Ultimate Conductor Tyranno, Soul-Eating Oviraptor, Petite Pteranodon, Lost World, and a Miscellaneous Saurus reprint were enough for the deck to see play in smaller tourneys. The same can't be said about Machine Reactor, even if it did get decent supports. Things would stay the same at YCS Bogota, where pure Zoodiac won, though duelists were awaiting the upcoming core set on May 5th, Maximum Crisis, the final Arc 5 core set. Notable cards included Ash Blossom and Joyous Spring, a hand-trap negation card for deck-related effects, Supreme King cards, which would be great for pendulum decks, Tornado Dragon, a solid Xyz to deal with back row cards, Duelist Alliance, Set Rotation, and True King of all calamities. That said, the primary focus for meta-headed individuals was the True Draco and Zoo support. Zoo were given more decent options, improving any condition lessened by the semi-limitation of Ratpier. On the other hand, True Dracos, and by extension True Kings, gained a lot of power here. Dracos revolve around tribute summons, typically by tributing a continuous back row card. The continuous cards were powerful in their own right, and Masterpiece as the Draco boss monster gave opponents a tricky card to out. In addition to their field spell, Dragonic Diagram, to give your opponents protection and searching capabilities, True Dracos were a bigger threat than ever. When viewing the next YCS in Pittsburgh, Maximum Crisis proved that the two archetypes gained enough support to ensure a Tier 0 format. True Draco Zoodiac, aka Draco Zoo, took all the victors from the recent lists and set and showed the resisting power. Imperial Order post-errata even saw its return. Between that, Crush Card, and Ring of Destruction during BA's reign, it proved that functional erratas was not a death sentence. It was clear that a ban list was already needed given Arc 5's last hurrah wasn't pulling any punches, and that Zoodiac was as dominant as Dragon Rulers were. So I suppose it's ironic that Aaron Furman won with an animal-related deck. Fittingly so, July 12th would bring the next list that was overall subtle, yet did its job. Zoo got hits, Grass got limited, and the lack of further hits to Zoo showcased Konami's continual push product mentality. At least the limitation to Grass severely capped the deck's ceiling moving forward, and the relaxing of certain Pendulum cards only spoke to the upcoming booster set, Pendulum Evolution. This gave the strategy strong support like Chronograph and Astrograph sorcerers. This was to the WCQ season as Blue Eyes was to the previous year, or even Agents a few years prior. But will the results mirror the past? National Season would only feature one more release that would matter in relation to this format, and that would be Battles of Legend: Light's Revenge. We'll cover the starter deck in the next entry. This would include a Witch of the Black Forest errata, much like Sangan in 2016, notable Dinosaur Support and Giant Rex and Double Evolution Pill, and a plethora of reprints. It's about time cards like Crystal Wing, Minerva, Omega, Breaksword, and Abyss Teus got a new print, especially Minerva given her previous prize card status. With all the niceties, one truth spoke across the WCQs. That truth would be that Zoodiac was not stopping anytime soon. Europe, Central America, Oceania, South America, and North America would all succumb to the Zoo madness. Since the meta was already in the thick of things, the only temporary remedy in sight was the World Championship list. Thus came August and the Worlds list, and Zoos were hit hard with the likes of Trident, Broadbull, and Barrage all getting hit. Masterpiece and Diagram got hit too, and Totally Awesome got limited, which stifled the Paleofrog deck. Clearly, Worlds was not messing around as seemingly strange decks arrived in Tokyo, Japan between the 12th and the 13th. Some neat brews included Demise True Draco and Windwitched Invoked. Others thought ABC would make their triumphant return here, but brass tacks, it was True King Yangzing Dinosaur that would ultimately win, piloted by Sujimura Ryosuke of Japan. You take away all the big strategies, and the underdog deck in conjunction with remaining power cards was enough to take the capital W. Well, that and the fact that the OCG had more experience with True Draco dinos than the TCG did given their OCG list. So to some, it was a surprise, and to others, just another day. Mid-2017 Yu-Gi-Oh! Looked nothing like it did at the start of the year. All the new support wiped away ABC and Metalphos from the previous format, sans zoo-related builds or fringe play, with only Paleofrog remaining due to its anti-meta nature. Many would consider this a Tier 0 format, which in that regard, was it truly? Yu-Gi-Oh! At this point was and has been archetypal based for quite some time now, honestly since GX. Is playing a deck with a Zoo engine that different from Perfect Circle playing almost a quarter hero cards, or GOAT format playing with 10 plus staples? After all, if we want to discuss change, what about Grass completely changing deck count to the point where even Zoo had to adapt to it? It wasn't pure Zoo that dominated. Instead, it was a format of tech choices and hybrid decks galore. So we wind up with a bunch of Zoo variants in the first half of 2017 Yu-Gi-Oh! Pure, Infernoid, Draco, Metalphos, Pendulum, Grass when it was around, and more. Other decks like Lightsworn Zombie, Cosmo, Pendulum Magician, ABC, Windwitched Invoked, DDD, Dinos, Skull Servants, and Paleofrog saw play. Which sure, you could argue to the viability of these decks winning the big one, but they were still around. A lot of it is perception, and making this series, I see you all comment on the love-hate relationship with this era as a whole, where it started as almost anti-Pendulum, to the annoying Jinlock, to the infamous Pepe format, to Zoodiacs redefining the Xyz mechanic and the direction of Yu-Gi-Oh! Moving into the upcoming series. Flip that coin around, and we could see a lot of positives, such as the power dynamics of 2014's meta, to the variety of Clown format and Monarch format, to the insanity and thought-provoking uncertainty of the Zoo formats we've covered today. The Pendulum mechanic was one brought by hesitancy from, honestly, both sides. Its strangeness was felt, and it never quite wavered, just as dueling on motorcycles was met with criticism before 5Ds kicked off. Plenty of change people see with Yu-Gi-Oh! Isn't inherently bad, because Yu-Gi-Oh! Has always had its issues from the very beginning from a fundamental level, as I've covered in a lot of my OCG videos. It's up to Konami to help steer the ship and repair it when needed. Was it a Ship of Theseus situation? You let me know. For if one player's sentiment was spot on, it's that extra deck special summoning has officially become a tidal wave between Zoo maximizing the Xyz summon and the Pendulum summon being figured out by Konami. And for Konami to protect the ship, they'll have to enter a different world. A Cyberse world. But that will be a story for another time. Duel on, passionate duelist.